answer the question that you want to know. Should you play Zenlesszonezero? And I know that because, well, you clicked on this video, which means you have at least some interest in the game. So the short answer is yes. Yes, because it's a free-to-play game that you can uninstall whenever you don't feel like playing anymore. So there's literally no reason to not check it out. You have nothing to lose. But if that's not enough to get you in the door, then let's get down and dirty and talk about what this game really is. And I'm speaking from the point of somebody who has played many a Hoyoverse game for many a years. Furthermore, this video is not sponsored. I am not getting paid to make this video, unfortunately, so all of the opinions are my own. So let's get started. Zenless, zzzero, whatever you want to call it, is the latest game releasing from the developers of the smash hits like Genshin and Honkai Star Rail. If you aren't familiar with the genre, it's an anime RPG with gacha elements. It's a live service game, which means they'll have service forever. Well, at least for many years to come. They'll be adding new content every few months. Zenless is an action game with really fast combat that rewards precise input, like perfect dodges, perfect assists, which sounds pretty scary for somebody who may have a skill issue. Pretty common around these parts. I too have a skill issue, but luckily I still found the game pretty fun, so you probably will too. It actually felt probably even better because when I hit those perfect dodges, I felt special. And that's really what's important these days. In comparison to Hoyo's other game, it is not open world like Genshin, and it is not turn-based like Star Rail. There are like small areas where you can walk about. There'll be NPCs, shops, and quests there, but these areas are pretty small. They're like one area or a couple blocks of a city, like 6th Street when you first get in there. During the special program today, they did say that they added more areas and they actually expanded some of the areas that were already available. However, in my time playing the betas, these areas were mostly just set dressing. You don't really interact with them. So if you're familiar with Star Rail and Genshin, both of those have chests in the world that you can explore. These areas aren't exactly explorable. You can go around and like walk around and look at all the details, but there won't be any things to collect or like map progression, which we're pretty used to in Hoyo's other games. So don't expect that when you get onto 6th Street. Just enjoy the scenery and then go where you need to go. That's kind of it. These areas are crafted to precision though, because Zenless does not hold back in anything visual. We'll come back to that though. But while there isn't much world exploration, there is sections where you are just thrust into these TV screen sections and like forced to navigate puzzles, enemies, and mazes. And this is by far the worst part of the game. It has been the worst part since the first beta test and has been hotly debated since then. And having played the third closed beta test, it is still there. And I still hate it. But luckily, I've felt that it's gotten better with each beta. Like, it's been less of a hindrance, although it's still there. I don't think they've changed like the way that it works. They just made it less. But it does show up at the worst times. And we'll get back to that. From a gameplay standpoint, the Hoyoverse game that I would compare this the most to is actually Honkai Impact 3rd. The game has similar QTE mechanics with like entry and exit animations, perfect dodges, assistance, and like tiny sentient beings that help you in combat, all of which it shares with Honkai Impact 3rd. But don't get me wrong, Zenless does not have any kind of leaderboard. You don't have to like min-max your button inputs to get the best time. It's still a single player game with like no influence from other players. So you don't have to worry about that, because that caused me a lot of stress when I was playing HI3. All of your combat trials are accessed from the menus. Like, all of your combat is in stages. There are no open world encounters, so you won't run into like an enemy in the street. I would say that the Zenless combat is even faster than HI3 somehow, since the encounters tend to last like usually longer because you're not mauling for that 0-second clear. So in that regard, it is a little bit less precise. But if you play HI3 like a normal person, you probably won't notice too much of a difference. As for the dailies, they're fairly easy and like speak to what I think is the true nature of the game, which is very relaxed. Every day you'll just log on, talk to the coffee shop man, you just skip his animation, and then you get 60 stamina, which is really nice in the games like these because they're like notorious for being stingy on stamina. So I really like that. After that, you're gonna go talk to a literal dog with painted nails, and you're gonna do this like scratch thing, and it will give you some random amount of either basic currency or paid currency based on how you scratch. After that, you can go to the soup man, the noodle shop, and he'll also have an animation, so you skip that, and then you get your choice of noodles. that will give you a buff for the combat daily. So I just do that every day. And then finally, you're gonna go like take a picture of a cat and then you go home. Aside from the coffee shop and the dog, these dailies change. So every day I just did all of the dailies and then went home to figure out which ones I actually needed to do, but it didn't matter because I did all of them anyway. So like that, it's very fast, very easy. I don't think that the dailies changing was like that big of a deal, even though sometimes you do stuff that wasn't required. Like eating noodles is not required every day. I just did it and then got a buff for the combat later. The combat dailies are very similar to HSR where you can stack them and get like 5 times reward. We'll just add new enemies to the lineup and you'll get 5 times reward based on how many times you want to do it. They're fairly easy and you'll farm for like characters, weapons, the bang boo, and disk drive. So the bang boo are the little things with the ears that follow you around. They help in like combat. You basically switch them, you Q2E them in, they do their skill, and then they're off the field. You don't actually play as them. And then the disk drives are similar to artifacts and relics in Genshin and Star Rail, but with these ones, the disk drives are actually easier to obtain than either of those games because there's actually an NPC where you can just trade them in for this currency that you get for doing quests and stuff. So you can basically trade in a bunch at the same time and she'll give you them back. You can even specify like which substats you're kind of looking for. So I think that Hoyoverse does a good job of like adding on to their most tedious things in other games and like learning from that. So I really like seeing that. That was good. Just like small quality of life things were upgraded a lot in Zenless. With the exception of forcing you into the TV section. So all of this, aside from the combat, Zenless is, in my opinion, the most chill game out of all of their other games. Maybe except for like Tears of Themis, but I generally don't count that game. The pace of the game is really slow, like really slow. Each in-game day is separated into 4 parts. So there's morning, afternoon, evening, and midnight. And sometimes you can only get certain quests based on the time of day. So you'll wake up in the morning, but the quest that you want to do isn't until the afternoon. So you got to find something to do all morning before you can start doing, your quest in the afternoon, which is very cumbersome. I found I didn't really like this aspect, especially since I couldn't find a way to like skip one section. Like you can go to bed in the morning, but you wake up the next morning. So functionally you've done nothing. You've just skipped the entire day. And this is especially annoying because sometimes there's like random character meetups that they'll request that you be at a certain spot at a certain time. So like some characters really like to meet at midnight and you might forget and you might be like on the disk drive grind and you forgot to meet up with them. So in your DMs the next morning, the person who wanted to meet up, like say Nicole, will text you and she'll be like, you stood me up last night. And then I guess you just feel bad because ouch, waifu, goodbye, she doesn't like you anymore. But you basically just miss that interaction until like you can proc it again through some way that I don't know how that works. But it feels bad because you missed that content because you forgot. So you either have to keep like an iron fist on your schedule or you just, wing it and hope that you show up at the right place at the right time. So a couple notes before I wrap this up. I won't go too much detail about the story, but I didn't think it was like exceptionally good or bad. It was there. I didn't hate it. There was also some times where I wish I was doing literally anything else, but overall, it wasn't too bad. The endgame content is very similar to Star Rail. It has the simulated universe kind of thing in hoyocreators, except it has the addition of, wait for it, the TV puzzles. Yeah, they put that in the worst place ever because you have to do hoyocreators a lot and the TV just slows it down enormously. It made hoyocreators, in my opinion, the worst thing in the game. Like, it's already long. Doing simulated universe is already long, and they made it even longer because you have to go through this whole like TV maze and deal with corruption and stuff that we don't need to get into. It's just too much, too long, and like too overbearing for good rewards, unfortunately. So there's that. They also have like the Abyss where you just go in, try to beat it within the time limit, and then they have this new for all the Hoyoverse games, another thing called Rally, which is basically just like a weekly combat thing. So all of that endgame should be enough to like tide us over, especially because Hollow Zero is going to take 5.5 years to do because it's so slow. But all in all, I think that you should check out the game for this reason that I'm about to tell you in particular. And it's because the atmosphere of this game is completely unmatched. So at minimum, you have to give this game a chance because the visual quality of the game is already nothing like we've ever seen in a Hoyoverse game, and already very rare within other games as well. Like, the visual quality in this game, I can't even express how good it is. You're gonna have to go look for it yourself. But because of the lack of interaction with the world, each area is crafted to perfection. It is so, like, dense, and it's just perfect. Nothing's out of place. Everything is, like, exactly where it's meant to be and does exactly what it is supposed to. The music is perfect. Like, there's like this lo-fi vibe that plays when you're on 6th Street, and then when you're breaking necks in combat, like, obviously that's a headbanger. The character animation is the best part of the game, especially during the obviously the cutscenes in the story. These just like crank it up to 11. The squash and stretch of these characters, I'm pretty sure none of the characters in this game have any bones, but doing that kind of squash and stretch, especially with 3D animation, is very impressive. I think that for no other reason other than just the character animation, you gotta check this game out. So hopefully that gave you enough of a reason to either check it out or say, oh my god, hell no, I'm never coming back here again. And you know, either one is good. Overall, Zenless is completely different than anything that we've seen from Hoyo before. Even though I was comparing it to HI3, there's more than enough differences to set it apart. The game still has a lot to prove, so if you think that I missed something or you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll try to get to them. I'll also be streaming the game. We're gonna break this up so you really know, okay? Hello. I will be streaming the game on launch day, so make sure that you subscribe and then keep an eye out for that live stream. I'll schedule a couple days in advance and I will see you guys there. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.